I can certainly help with this. The story we're crafting revolves around a black, female veteran named Sarah. She served her country with honor, but now finds herself facing the harsh realities of homelessness. Imagine her, strong but tired, her eyes holding a mix of resilience and weariness. The opening scene finds her seeking a moment of warmth and sustenance in a local diner. The diner represents a safe haven, a place where she hopes to find a brief respite from the cold streets. Think of it as a classic American diner, the kind with red vinyl booths, a long counter, and the aroma of coffee and freshly made food hanging in the air. It's a place where locals gather, a community hub. Sarah pushes open the heavy glass door, the bell above jingling, announcing her arrival. All she wants is a hot meal, a quiet corner, and a temporary escape from her struggles. The bell's chime fades as Sarah steps inside, the warmth of the diner enveloping her like a gentle hug. The air smells of frying bacon and sweet syrup, a comforting aroma that momentarily lifts her spirits. She scans the room, noticing the friendly faces of the regulars. A group of elderly men chatting over coffee, a young couple sharing a plate of fries, a lone truck driver nursing a cup of joe. A waitress with a kind smile and a name tag that reads Doris approaches her. "Just one?" she asks gently. Sarah nods, her voice a little raspy. "Table for one, please." Doris leads her to a small booth near the back, away from the bustling counter. Sarah slides into the worn vinyl seat, a sense of relief washing over her. She picks up a menu, its edges frayed from years of use, and begins to study it, carefully considering her options. Every penny counts. After a few moments, Doris returns, her pen poised over her notepad. "Ready to order, hon?" she asks. Sarah looks up, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Yes, please. I'll have the grilled cheese sandwich and a small coffee." She chooses the most affordable option, knowing it will be enough to fill her empty stomach. Doris jots down the order. "Coming right up," she says cheerfully, and heads back to the kitchen. Sarah watches her go, feeling a sense of gratitude for the simple kindness. She glances around the diner again, observing the easy camaraderie between the staff and the customers. It's more than just a place to eat. It's a place where people connect, where they feel a sense of belonging. She wishes she could feel that same sense of belonging, that same sense of security. But for now, a warm meal and a quiet corner are enough. The diner door swings open again, this time admitting 2 police officers. They stroll in, their uniforms crisp and imposing, their presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Officer Miller, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern expression, leads the way, followed by Officer Davis, younger and seemingly more eager to please. They scan the room, their eyes lingering on each of the patrons. There's a sense of casual authority in their movements, a subtle intimidation that makes some of the diners shift uncomfortably in their seats. They exchange a few words, a smirk playing on Officer Davis's lips, before heading towards the counter, their boots clicking loudly on the tiled floor. The easy chatter of the diner begins to quiet, replaced by a palpable tension. Even Doris's smile seems a bit strained as she approaches them. Instead of settling at the counter, Officer Miller's gaze sweeps across the room and fixes on Sarah, sitting quietly in her booth. He nudges Officer Davis, and they both begin to walk towards her, their expressions hardening. The diner falls almost completely silent. "Ma'am," Officer Miller says, his voice loud enough to carry through the entire diner. "We need to ask you a few questions." Sarah looks up, startled. "Me?" "Yes, you," Officer Davis replies, his tone accusatory. "What's someone like you doing in a place like this?" The implication hangs heavy in the air. They're questioning her presence, suggesting she doesn't belong. The other diners watch, their faces a mixture of concern and disbelief. Sarah's heart sinks. The brief respite she had found is shattered, replaced by a familiar wave of anxiety and injustice. Her hands begin to tremble slightly. Despite her rising anxiety, Sarah takes a deep breath and tries to remain calm. "Officers," she says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, "I'm just having lunch. I'm a veteran." A veteran, huh? Officer Davis sneers, raising an eyebrow. And what branch were you in? Army, Sarah replies, her gaze unwavering. I served 2 tours overseas. Right? Officer Miller interjects, his tone dismissive. And now you're just hanging around diners. He lets the question hang in the air, heavy with judgment. Sarah's jaw tightens. I'm currently experiencing some housing challenges, she says, choosing her words carefully. She refuses to say the word homeless. Feels like another blow. The officers exchange a look, clearly unconvinced. Instead of showing understanding or compassion, they press further, their questions becoming more pointed and accusatory. Their harassment escalates, making Sarah feel increasingly vulnerable and exposed. The other patrons in the diner are now openly watching, their faces etched with concern. The friendly atmosphere has completely evaporated, replaced by a heavy sense of unease. An elderly man at the counter shakes his head in disapproval. The young couple sharing fries exchange worried glances. Doris, the waitress, hovers nearby, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, a silent plea in her eyes. A few people offer subtle gestures of support. The truck driver gives Sarah a small, almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. Another woman whispers, "You don't have to answer them," though not loud enough for the officers to hear. These small acts of kindness, though subtle, offer Sarah a flicker of hope, a reminder that not everyone is against her. She is not entirely alone. The unfairness of the situation is palpable, and the diners are starting to feel it too. "Let's see some ID," Officer Miller demands, his hand outstretched. Sarah sighs but complies. She reaches into her worn purse and carefully retrieves her military identification card. It's a little faded, but the information is clear. She hands it to Officer Miller. He takes the card and examines it closely, his brow furrowed. He passes it to Officer Davis, who scrutinizes it with open skepticism. They exchange another look, their disbelief palpable. "This doesn't look real," Officer Davis says, his voice laced with suspicion. "You expect us to believe you're a veteran?" Sarah's anger begins to simmer. "It's a valid military ID," she says, her voice rising slightly. "You can verify it if you need to." But the officers ignore her protest. They continue to question her, their tone increasingly aggressive, their actions designed to humiliate and intimidate. The diner patrons watch, their expressions hardening with anger. The situation is reaching a boiling point. Feeling the weight of their unjust scrutiny and the humiliation of being targeted in front of everyone, Sarah draws on a reserve of strength. Her voice, though quiet, is firm and resolute. "I know my rights, officers," she states, meeting their gaze directly. "Am I being detained?" The officers scoff, their arrogance momentarily faltering. "Detained? Don't be ridiculous," Officer Miller says, but there's a slight hesitation in his voice. Officer Davis shifts uncomfortably, glancing around at the increasingly hostile faces of the diner patrons. The power dynamic is subtly shifting. Sarah's knowledge of her rights, and her willingness to assert them, has thrown them off balance. They had expected her to be intimidated, to back down. But she is standing her ground. The air crackles with tension, the outcome uncertain. With a deliberate movement, Sarah reaches into her purse again, this time retrieving her cell phone. Holding it steady in her hand, she looks directly at the officers and announces, her voice clear and unwavering, "I'm going to call my lawyer." She adds, "For their benefit and for the benefit of the watching diners." He's a well-respected advocate for veterans' rights. The effect is immediate and dramatic. The officer's demeanor changes in an instant. The arrogance melts away, replaced by a flicker of apprehension. Officer Miller's shoulders slump slightly, and Officer Davis avoids eye contact. They suddenly seem much less confident, much less certain of their authority. Sarah's simple act of reaching for her phone has transformed the situation. The power has shifted once again. Everyone in the diner holds their breath, waiting to see what will happen next. Sarah dials the number, her hand remarkably steady. When her lawyer answers, She speaks calmly and clearly, outlining the situation in a measured tone. "I'm being harassed by 2 officers at a local diner," she says, her voice carrying just enough for the officers to hear. "They are questioning my veteran status and demanding identification, despite me providing it. I believe I am being unfairly targeted." As she speaks, the tension in the diner thickens. Every eye is on her, every ear straining to hear. The diner patrons are now openly showing their support for Sarah, their sympathy radiating towards her. They glare at the officers, their faces reflecting a mixture of anger and indignation. The atmosphere is charged, a silent battle being waged between Sarah and the officers, with the diner patrons firmly on Sarah's side. Doris quietly refills Sarah's coffee cup, a small gesture of solidarity. As Sarah continues to speak to her lawyer, Officer Miller takes a step closer, attempting to interrupt her. "Ma'am, we were just trying to ensure the safety of this establishment," he says, his voice regaining some of its earlier authority, though it still lacks its previous arrogance. "We didn't mean any disrespect." Officer Davis nods in agreement, adding, "It was just a misunderstanding." Sarah holds up a hand, cutting them off. "I have the right to speak with my legal counsel without interruption," she says firmly, her eyes locking onto Officer Miller's. "I will finish my call, and then you can speak with my lawyer directly." She turns her attention back to the phone, reiterating her location and providing a brief description of the officers. The diner patrons murmur their approval, impressed by her strength and resolve. The officers, thwarted in their attempt to control the narrative, fall silent once more, their faces flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. After a few more moments, Sarah ends the call, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over her. She looks directly at the officers, her expression calm and composed. "My lawyer is now aware of the situation," she informs them, her voice clear and steady. "He will be contacting your precinct shortly." The officers' faces pale visibly. The mention of their precinct, and the implication of an official complaint, clearly rattles them. They exchange nervous glances, their earlier bravado completely gone. They know they have crossed a line, and they are now facing the potential consequences. The diner patrons watch with a sense of vindication, knowing that Sarah has turned the tables on her harassers. The silence in the diner is thick with anticipation, everyone waiting to see what the officers will do next. Visibly shaken, Officer Miller attempts to backpedal, his voice now noticeably softer and more conciliatory. "Ma'am, we sincerely apologize if we caused any offense," he says, avoiding Sarah's direct gaze. "We were just doing our job, trying to maintain a safe environment for everyone." Officer Davis chimes in, his voice equally subdued. "Yes, ma'am, we didn't mean to single you out. It was just a routine check." Their apologies ring hollow, their attempts to justify their actions sounding weak and unconvincing, especially in light of their earlier aggressive behavior. The diner patrons are not buying it. They can see the officers are simply trying to avoid the consequences of their actions. Sarah remains silent, her expression unwavering, letting their insincere words hang in the air. She knows their apologies are not for her benefit, but for their own. The diner owner, a burly man named Frank with a kind heart hidden beneath a gruff exterior, has been observing the entire situation from behind the counter. He's seen enough. Stepping out from behind the counter, he walks towards Sarah's booth, his face set in a stern expression. "All right, officers," he says, his voice booming through the diner, silencing any remaining whispers. "That's enough. I'm going to have to ask you to leave my establishment." The officers look at him, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. "But sir," Officer Miller stammers, "we were just—" Frank cuts him off with a wave of his hand. "I saw what happened," he says, his gaze unwavering. "You're not welcome here anymore. Please leave." His words are firm and unambiguous. The diner patrons erupt in applause, showing their support for Frank's decisive action. The officers, thoroughly defeated, have no choice but to comply. Thoroughly embarrassed and acutely aware of the potential consequences of their actions, the officers quickly retreat. They avoid eye contact with the diner patrons, their faces flushed with shame. Officer Miller fumbles with the door handle, nearly tripping in his haste to escape. Officer Davis follows close behind, his head bowed low. The sound of the bell above the door jangling as they exit is almost deafening in the suddenly quiet diner. A collective sigh of relief sweeps through the room. The tension that had gripped the diner for so long finally begins to dissipate, replaced by a sense of shared triumph and renewed camaraderie. The atmosphere begins to return to normal, though the memory of what just transpired lingers in the air. The focus now shifts back to Sarah, the woman who stood her ground and won. Immediately, the diner patrons rally around Sarah, their earlier subtle support now blossoming into open expressions of solidarity. Frank, the owner, approaches her booth, his gruff exterior softened by a warm smile. "You okay, ma'am?" he asks, his voice filled with genuine concern. "Those guys were way out of line." Doris, the waitress, refills Sarah's coffee again, adding a generous slice of apple pie on the house. Other patrons approach her booth, offering words of encouragement and support. "We're glad you stood up to them," one man says. "They can't just treat people like that." A woman offers to pay for Sarah's meal, and another slips a $20 bill into her hand, telling her to get something nice for herself. Overwhelmed by the outpouring of kindness, Sarah's eyes fill with tears. She realizes that despite the hardships she has faced, there are still good people in the world, people who care and are willing to help. For the first time in a long time, she feels a sense of hope. The story now shifts its focus to the aftermath of the incident. Back at the police precinct, a formal complaint has been filed against officers Miller and Davis. Their superiors, facing mounting pressure from Sarah's lawyer and the growing public attention, have no choice but to take action. Both officers are immediately placed on administrative leave, pending a thorough investigation into their conduct. Their badges and firearms are confiscated, and they are instructed to remain at home until further notice. The sense of invincibility they once possessed has vanished, replaced by a gnawing anxiety about their future. They know their careers are on the line, and they have only themselves to blame. The investigation will examine their actions, their motivations, and their compliance with department policy. The results could have far-reaching consequences for their careers and their lives. The story of what happened at Frank's Diner doesn't stay confined within its walls for long. One of the diner patrons, witnessing the injustice firsthand, posts about the incident on social media. The post quickly goes viral, shared and retweeted thousands of times. People are outraged by the officer's treatment of Sarah, a black, homeless veteran. Local news outlets pick up the story, interviewing Sarah, Frank, and other diner patrons. The story spreads like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of public anger and demands for accountability. Protests are organized outside the police precinct, calling for the officers to be fired. The police department is inundated with calls and emails from concerned citizens, demanding justice for Sarah. The incident becomes a symbol of systemic bias and mistreatment of vulnerable populations, amplifying the call for police reform. The pressure on the police department intensifies. Meanwhile, Sarah's lawyer is working diligently behind the scenes to ensure justice is served. He meticulously gathers evidence, interviews witnesses, and prepares a comprehensive legal strategy. He successfully files formal complaints against officers Miller and Davis with the police department's Internal Affairs Division, as well as with the local Civil Rights Commission. The complaints detail the officers' harassment, discriminatory behavior, and violation of Sarah's rights. They cite the officers' unjustified questioning, their disbelief of her military ID, and their overall disrespectful and demeaning treatment. The complaints also emphasize the impact of their actions on Sarah, highlighting the emotional distress and humiliation she experienced. The filing of these complaints marks a significant step towards holding the officers accountable for their actions and preventing similar incidents from happening in the future. The legal process is now fully underway. The internal affairs investigation, fueled by the overwhelming public pressure and the strength of Sarah's lawyer's complaints, concludes with damning findings. Officers Miller and Davis are found to have violated department policy regarding respectful conduct, unbiased policing, and the treatment of veterans. As a result, they face a range of disciplinary actions. Officer Davis, the younger and less experienced of the two, is sentenced to sensitivity training and a temporary demotion. Officer Miller, whose behavior was deemed more egregious, faces harsher consequences. He is ultimately terminated from the police force, effectively ending his career. The disciplinary actions send a clear message that such behavior will not be tolerated within the police department. While it doesn't erase the harm caused to Sarah, it provides a measure of justice and accountability. The community, moved by Sarah's story and her courage in standing up to injustice, rallies around her in extraordinary ways. Offers of support pour in from all directions. Local veterans organizations reach out, offering assistance with housing, healthcare, and navigating the complex system of veteran benefits. Several local businesses offer her job opportunities, recognizing her skills and experience. A kind-hearted landlord offers her a small but comfortable apartment at a greatly reduced rent. People donate furniture, household goods, and clothing to help her furnish her new home. The outpouring of support is overwhelming, providing Sarah with the resources and opportunities she needs to rebuild her life and regain her independence. She is deeply grateful for the kindness and generosity of the community. Empowered by her experience and driven by a desire to prevent others from suffering similar injustices, Sarah decides to become an advocate for homeless veterans and police reform. She starts by sharing her story at community meetings, veterans gatherings, and town hall events. Her powerful testimony resonates with audiences, raising awareness about the challenges faced by homeless veterans and the need for greater police accountability. She partners with local organizations to lobby for policy changes, advocating for increased funding for veteran services, improved training for police officers, and greater transparency in law enforcement practices. She becomes a voice for the voiceless, a champion for the marginalized, and a beacon of hope for those who have been forgotten. Her journey from homelessness to advocacy is an inspiration to others, demonstrating the power of resilience, determination, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Sarah's story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up against injustice, even when it seems daunting. Her courage in asserting her rights and refusing to be intimidated sparked a chain of events that led to accountability and positive change. It demonstrates that one person, armed with knowledge and determination, can make a significant difference. Furthermore, the story highlights the transformative power of community support in helping those in need. The kindness and generosity shown by the diner patrons and the wider community provided Sarah with the resources and encouragement she needed to rebuild her life and become an advocate for others. It underscores the importance of empathy, compassion, and collective action in creating a more just and equitable society. When we come together to support those who are struggling, we can create a ripple effect of positive change that benefits everyone. Sarah's experience underscores a crucial point. Even in the most difficult circumstances, knowing your rights and having access to legal support can make a significant difference. When the officers targeted her, her knowledge of her rights empowered her to push back against their harassment. Her access to a skilled and dedicated lawyer ensured that her voice was heard and that justice was ultimately served. This highlights the importance of legal aid organizations and pro bono services, which provide crucial support to vulnerable populations who may not otherwise be able to afford legal representation. Knowing your rights is the first step, but having the resources to defend those rights is essential for achieving true equality and justice under the law. Sarah's story is a testament to the power of legal empowerment and the importance of ensuring that everyone has equal access to the legal system. Sarah's story, while filled with moments of hardship and injustice, ultimately ends on a note of hope and resilience. She is no longer defined by her homelessness or the discrimination she faced. Instead, she is defined by her strength, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to creating a better future. She moves forward, empowered by the support of her community, and driven by a desire to help other veterans who are struggling. She secures a stable job, finds a safe and affordable place to live, and actively participates in efforts to reform the police department and improve services for the homeless. Sarah's journey is a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity and to the transformative power of hope, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. She is a true inspiration, a symbol of what is possible when we stand up for what is right and work together to create a more just and equitable world.